Yes, Rahila, go for it. You can unmute yourself now.
Assalamualaikum. My question is around how do you keep the consistency of concentration when you're doing the rakas? Because I feel like if I do like the 4 rakas, I start off really well for the first 2, and then I sort of tail off and towards the end, and then I'm always in 2 minds whether I should go back and repeat it and try and improve it. But I just feel like that's the thing I struggle with, that consistency. I have a good start, but I don't know. I don't think there's any prayer where I've 100% been able to be consistent in every rakah and really be fully engaged.
Oh, excellent. Okay, no, thank you for your question. It's a very, very good question. And if you think about it, it's probably a broader problem, right? Like in life, generally speaking, for many things, that's often the case, isn't it? You start strong, and then it kind of peters out, like especially where we are now in the year. Many of us, we might have started 2023 with certain commitments and resolutions or whatever, and now we're sort of, getting into the sort of second half of January. And I think there's a they say, like 80% of New Year's resolutions are basically over by the time by the time the second half of January comes. So it's many things happening that way. And sometimes if in sports, for example, in races and stuff, you can have a situation where somebody starts really strong, but then they get taken over by the rest of the field, like in the second half. So in this particular example, we start with Salah, we're concentrated, we've done the preparation in our mind, and we've done our wudu properly and the other elements of preparation properly, and then we're beginning. And then we realize that it's kind of petering out. So first of all, I want to say this. So 2 things important to say. First of all, it's excellent. Just the fact that we notice that within ourselves is an excellent thing. Okay. The fact that we are mindful enough to pay attention to when we are sort of losing it, or that we are reflective enough to realize that we're kind of losing it and it's declining, is a good thing in and of itself. So whilst when we think about that, we might start to feel down about it. Okay. I just want to say just to everybody more generally that it's important that, actually just to realize that it's a good thing, right? That you're able to do that, number 1. Number 2 is we don't or we shouldn't repeat the prayer because we felt that the concentration wasn't there. Okay. You don't repeat the prayer because you feel the concentration wasn't there, unless on a very exceptional circumstance, like it was a complete disaster, basically, right? Maybe there's something significant, and then you really feel that it was a completely kind of almost non-existent kind of affair, right? And then maybe on an exceptional situation, maybe here and there, but otherwise it's not the appropriate practice to do, because you've always got the next prayer to improve, right? And of course, as I'm sure even some of you may well experience, because I often get this question, especially with regards to wudu. Many people in their kind of keenness to perfect their wudu, they get into a obsessive kind of cycle where sometimes they're actually like repeating certain actions and elements of the wudu or the whole wudu many times, right? And this becomes to an extreme, and so it's very important that we don't get into that mentality with regards to our salah. Okay, so repetition of the prayer because of that is not something that should be done. If you're in the middle of a statement and you feel that, the previous statement I didn't say appropriately, you rewinding 1 or 2 statements occasionally, again, is not a problem. But constantly doing it over and over again, no, we don't do that. Okay. So look, so there's 2 points then, 2 more points to make. Number 1 is when you're in the salah and you catch yourself, right? You catch yourself wavering, or that you realize, oh, hang on, my mind's gone elsewhere, right? You're thinking through it. You realize that you're thinking about something, and actually in that moment you're kind of quite intensely thinking about some other random thing, and then you catch yourself and you kind of almost wake up to the fact that you're in the prayer. What do you do then? Now that's really important, very, very important, that at that stage, my main advice then to people is to literally pause, right? Meaning you're still in position, whichever position you're in, but you stop talking. Don't keep saying something, because oftentimes when our mind is elsewhere, our tongue is still moving, right? So just pause, stop talking for a second, right? Stop expressing yourself, and also don't move. So stay in position, and just take a moment just to get yourself back into the zone, right? To almost reimagine yourself in Allah's presence, remind yourself what it is that you're doing, its importance, etc. Before you then, and maybe think about, okay, the meaning of the previous or the statement that you're about to make. Almost remind yourself of the position that you're in. You're in the ruku, you're in the bowing position. Almost see yourself right from outside of yourself, okay? And then once you've kind of regained a little bit of that, then start talking, right? Then continue. I think that's very important. And it's not a problem. Like many of us, I make this point in the program as well, that like many of us in the salah, we don't allow any pause, right? We literally, you know, from the beginning, Allahu Akbar, Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk, then Fatiha, then Surah, like no gaps, no pause, no breath in between. Just constant talking, constant moving. But you are allowed to, and it's encouraged to just pause. And then especially when you catch yourself or like wavering, just pause, take your time, reorient yourself, and then continue. Excuse me. Then really the only other thing that you can do then to try and maintain a high level of consistency throughout is really just a practice. And it's just taking your time before the actual each phrase, each movement, right? It's about almost regaining that consciousness or keeping that consciousness high at each point. It's just a matter of practice. And there is also, of course, when you feel that there is a distraction, like a devilish kind of sort of distraction, okay, you feel that kind of whisper is coming from outside or whatever, then to take refuge in Allah. So although at the beginning of the salah, when we are beginning with Surah Al-Fatiha, we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. We take refuge in Allah from the devil, from the shaitan. And that is something that we can do at any point in the salah as well. But again, it shouldn't be excessive, right? Not every single moment, oh, we find ourselves distracted. No, I think it's to be used kind of selectively, okay, and appropriately when we feel that kind of, let's call it external type of whisper, if you like. But it should be done, but not every single time, because again, something can become a big interruption in the salah as well, which you also want to avoid. And there is also the one of the prophetic narrations recommends alongside that, taking refuge in Allah by saying A'udhu billah, a kind of what's like a dry spitting. Okay, so this is you turn your head slightly to the left and just like this, right? And it's kind of like I think the way that you actually kind of experience that is almost like it's a good, psychologically speaking, within yourself. It's like you're taking the trouble almost to kind of ward off, right? Or to kind of distance yourself from your thought, from your negative thought or your irrelevant thought, and get back into what it is that you're actually trying to do. Okay, so that's what I would say with regards to your question.